Today on the Rise of the Challenge podcast.
Was promoting parties in my freshman year of college. I started to, you know, sell drugs and promote parties, and I had a front production company where we were going around and recording music around the country and stuff, but really it was just a front for my drug business. I never had that conversation with a male role model, and that's why I do it so much now with people, with younger people and younger men especially. Like, where do you see yourself?
Welcome to the Rise of the Challenge podcast. Joined today, he's an author, speaker, podcast host, nonprofit executive. It's Adam Vibe Gunton. How are you doing today, Adam?
Doing excellent, Alex. How are you?
We're doing so good. We are so excited to have you on the show to talk about your rise to the challenge. What we'd like to do with all of our guests is go right to the beginning. Talk about where you're from and what you like doing growing up.
Well, I'm from Colorado, and I'm from the community that basically everybody in the world has heard of, the Columbine community. That's where I grew up. Went to Columbine Hills Elementary School, Columbine High School, and I was an athlete. I'm growing up. I was able to be, I was blessed to be on the wrestling team. I won state when I was in Little League. Was the home run derby hitter at the Little League World Series. That was a super fun experience, and we won state my senior year at Columbine High School for football, and I got to be the defensive captain. And just really great childhood. I love sports, love to party a little bit too much, I guess. I was introduced to drugs pretty early at 12 years old. So I started liking that a little bit too much. But I was passionate about sports and really teamwork and partnership. That's what I really liked. I wasn't really the best football player,
Mhm.
but I got all state because I had such good teammates. Like, I had an All-American, I had a few first team All-State players, and what I specialized in was hyping them up. Like, I was the linebacker and I was going up and smacking Ryan Miller on the butt and saying, "Get in there, Miller time," like, and that's a needed piece also, you know.
I love how you mentioned doing different sports because I think especially kids and when they're getting older, you got to try all those different sports because you never know which one you're going to like more and you get the variety. But you mentioned teamwork. Did you feel that when you were giving like the hyping up your teammates, did you ever see them reciprocated back when you needed to be hyped up in a way?
Oh, of course. Yeah, I think there were different things that we each needed to be hyped up for. I was the guy that needed to be hyped up off the field. I was the guy that, the like Ryan Miller. He was never partying. He was an all-American football player. He was, really really hard-nosed there, and he would pull me aside and have conversations with me, hard conversations with me. I need to be hyped up in that mental health space, I'll say, because being introduced to cocaine at 12 years old starts you off on an emotional roller coaster pretty early on. And something else, I loved sports, but something I still do. I was on the chess club. I was in the chess club when I was growing up too, in elementary school and middle school. Um, I really like the intellectual like challenges, and looking for those teammates, looking for that right piece that's going to fit the puzzle. And oftentimes it's not the queen. Oftentimes it's this pawn that you just have to, you know, put in the right spot, and they block everything.
You talked about getting exposed to drugs at a young age. When was that first time, and what do you think was the biggest influence that led you to that at a young age?
Well, the influence was a 21, 22-year-old older influence in my life. I never call this person out. It's not my place to do that, but and I don't think that this person was like out to cause harm, wasn't thinking that way, but yeah, I was introduced to cocaine at 12 years old, and I thought it was cool. I looked up to this person, and I never really heard about the negative impacts that this was going to have on my life.
With getting that exposed, did you notice like friends, family realizing a change in your personality, the way that you were doing things because of that start?
You know, at 12 years old, I was already starting to use, and I was still the captain of the team when I was a senior in high school. I was really good at hiding it.
Wow.
I was also really good at keeping this facade, making sure that everybody saw me that as that athlete, saw me as that guy that's like the popular dude that is friendly to everybody and hypes everybody up. I got the middle name Vibe for a reason. I was never Debbie Downer or anything. I always was able to put off that strong facade. And it's actually interesting because I had a conversation with someone, a friend of mine today, and Shanda called me to congratulate me on my TED Talk, and she said that I killed it and that kind of stuff. And I went through something pretty hard last year, and she said, her and I were real close, and she said she never thought that I even struggle, and I think this is a good conversation for men out there also, and especially the people that have men in their life that have this really strong facade. Sometimes they need to really be asked how they're doing. And I'm not saying that I needed that or anything. Nobody missed the boat or anything like that, but um, a lot of men have to do that when they're going through hard times. They have to put off that strong outward look and let everybody know that they are fine when a conversation could be needed.
Were you shocked, like going from that time to where you are today, having that, where you were able to keep that kind of different personality looks to whoever you were around, where they didn't realize that you were using at a young age or sharing what's going on or sharing those emotions?
You know, it is interesting because I was hiding my drug use, but I think the reason why I was able to hide it for so long was that, it didn't change my heart. I wasn't out committing crimes to get dope. I wasn't, stealing from people and stuff like that. Um, I was just, hiding a really, really bad drug habit and an addiction. And I don't think that I had like, you know, I had kind of the double life, but
Mhm.
I didn't look at it like that. I looked at it as I was hiding this drug addiction and putting this off, right? I didn't look at it as two different things. I'm one person no matter what. Everybody out there is one person no matter what. And, you know, sometimes we just need to talk about it, and I think that's something that a lot of people don't give others the time to tell them how they're really doing, because so many people ask how you doing, and they're not actually asking how are you doing. They're waiting for that quick response. I'm okay, I'm good. Great, how are you? Just this, it's like a greeting now instead of a way to open up a conversation. And think that that's, and this is just coming off top right now. Like I think that that's actually something a lot of people that are listening to this right now. Um, if you asked one person a week, just intentionally asked one person in your life per week, legitimately, how are you doing? You know, there could be a lot of world change with that.
I kind of look at that when you just mentioned that with friendships that I have, when just reaching out to them saying how you're doing and how it's just so quick. But then like you kind of have to dig deeper to figure out how are they really doing. So it's kind of interesting that you mentioned that because I think a lot of people aren't wanting to express. They are kind of because they maybe feel shame or guilt or doubt when they share the vulnerability of themselves.
Yeah.
As you're growing up, sometimes we're asked, what is that dream job? You talked about the sports that you were doing, the chess club, but what was that dream job that you were wanting it past high school?
Party. I was promoting parties in my freshman year of college. I started to, you know, sell drugs and promote parties, and I had a front production company where we were going around and recording music around the country and stuff, but really it was just a front for my drug business. I never had that conversation with a male role model, and that's why I do it so much now with people, with younger people and younger men especially. Like, where do you see yourself? What do we something I specialize in with the people around me is I'm really able to pull out somebody's desires and someone's dreams,
Mhm.
because the world really, really chokes that out of people. When we get that 9 to 5 and we get those responsibilities and those bills and all the things that are coming at us, we start to get into this mundane like workflow. And I'm not saying that the 9 to 5 is bad. Like that's, oftentimes exactly what we need to do and oftentimes exactly what we want to do. But what are we doing with all the other hours, the 156 hours outside of work? And if we're able to find what really drives us, find what really makes us feel alive, then all the other stuff just comes with it. I never got that conversation with someone. I never was asked, what do you want to do outside of high school? What do you want to go to college for? None of that. I applied to college like at the deadline to go to this college called the University of No Other Choice in Greeley, Colorado, or UNC, University of Northern Colorado. We call it the University of No Other Choice here. So, um, and I ended up going there, and I didn't really have anything, dude. I never had those conversations until I was like 22, 23.
With using that production company as a front and promoting parties, drugs, were you ever nervous about getting caught? Because I feel like you have that confidence where you're like, well, I've been doing it for so long and I've been a part of it. Like, I don't feel like anything's going to happen. Or maybe did you have that and you were just rolling the dice, basically?
I mean, I have been caught with drugs. It's not, I didn't just ride off into the sunset. Um, yeah, I think that I was high enough the whole time that it didn't really matter.
Mm.
Like, it didn't really matter because I was high. I wasn't, it's really interesting though, because of the way that drugs and things were introduced to me, I never thought that I was causing harm, but I can tell you that I've made a lot of amends to people that I sold drugs to. Because at the time I wasn't thinking about causing harm to this person. I thought that we were all partying, we were all, enjoying this or whatever, and I was making money, right? Um, but there's a lot of harm done by drugs, a lot. And drug dealers are the ones causing a lot of it. And people say, well, they'll get it somewhere. Well, I'd rather them get it somewhere else now. I'd rather them, you know, um, everybody needs help, even the drug dealers. But there's a lot of harm caused by drugs, and I'm just not doing it anymore.
When was the moment that you kind of felt it was like at the low point where you maybe needed to switch and change what you were doing? Did you ever have that rock bottom?
I've had a lot of rock bottoms, and the it's a myth. Rock bottom is a myth. I thought it was rock bottom when I had this pest control company. I was a third owner. I was the VP of sales and was doing really well. All of my dope was going in my arm, and I had lost all my friends because they found out I was doing heroin. And I was on my couch and I wrote a suicide note on my iPad, and I put in as much as I could in my arm, and I woke up the next day with a needle still in my arm. I don't know how I survived that, right? Thought that was rock bottom. And then I thought it was rock bottom when I lost that business. Then I thought it was rock bottom when I was in the homeless shelter, looking around at all the other homeless people in this place, thinking of what my life had become. Then I got kicked out of the homeless shelter. So there isn't a bottom until you're dead. And you think that everything in this circumstance is the worst that it could possibly get until something else happens. And it's so crazy because on your way down also, things become your new standard and your new norm. Like I was in that homeless shelter for a few weeks, and at some point during those few weeks, it became the norm. It was no longer a rock bottom. It was like, oh, okay, I live here now. I'm one of these people. I'm homeless. I'm a homeless guy, you know? And that was my new standard. And it didn't shock me anymore. But then when I got kicked out, that hurt again. But guess what? Then that became my new standard. So wherever we stop digging is where the bottom actually is.
Did you have a plan when, like, going forward? Like, you have the experience being an entrepreneur and like building and working. In a way, you took that kind of the entrepreneurial route with the production company and how you sold. You're working in a way the same skill sets with the pest control. Did you kind of go based on that skill set when leaving the homeless shelter? Did you kind of have that game plan ready to, not maybe not ready to go, but working towards, because you needed to get your life back on track. You wanted to build up from that.
Well, I never lost my entrepreneurial spirit. I mean, I've been through a lot of different businesses. I can sell anything at any time to anyone, right? As long as I believe in a product, like you're buying it, you know? Um, the thing is I actually, at this time that I'm talking about being in the homeless shelter and stuff, I had a six-figure job before that in sales. And I realized that, I'm killing myself. Making this money, every dollar is going into my arm. They're housing me. I get a corporate apartment because I'm like really good at sales. I was able to go door to door and make these companies money. They took care of me, I took care of them, that kind of stuff. And it ended with me calling my boss and telling him like I'm getting ready to kill myself because I can't do this anymore. And I've got to quit. I can't make money anymore. I've got to figure this out. And I literally intentionally put myself in a place of being destitute in order to find the need to get clean, because I wanted to for so long. There was, the first time I ever went to a 12-step meeting, I think I was 18 or 19. The first time I realized, okay, I have a problem. And it took me another 10 years to get sober. That whole time I was trying like, if it wasn't every 6 months, it was every month, and then it got to a point where I was going to meetings every single day. I was going to church. I was going to Bible study every Tuesday. I was going to the MMA gym trying to get them to beat recovery into me. I couldn't get clean. There was nothing I could do. Um, and that's a really scary place to be. People, there's some kind of stupid argument about whether addiction is a disease or not. And when this thing is active, if you haven't experienced it, you don't understand it. You don't have the ability to say no. It's it's so crazy to think about now in my life because I can say no. I quit drinking soda and energy drink December 31st, 2019 because I said so. There's a whole bunch of things I just have complete control over.
Mhm.
But when I put alcohol or a mind-altering substance in my body, I can't stop. And I had to have some kind of power come into my life. And as you can see over my corner or over my shoulder, who it ended up being. Um, but man, it's a really scary place to be.
Looking at time during recovery, someone that's listening to this interview that may be going through something similar, what was the biggest learning lesson it taught you?
It taught me that persistence is the key. Persistent prayer, persistent action. You know, I was going to meetings every single day, high, for months. And what I found is that God doesn't call us to get clean and then come to Him. He calls us to come to Him and He will help us get clean. He'll clean us from the inside out. That's the whole point. Like for me, I'm a Christian because I met Jesus face to face, and that's what ended up happening for where I never used drugs again. But I got baptized on August 28th, 2017. I didn't get clean until November 6th, 2017. And that whole time I'm struggling. It doesn't, we're not supposed to get cleaned up and then start going to meetings.
Mhm.
We're supposed to start taking the action steps so that we start to get in the environment that's going to be an environment to get clean, to find a place, to find the wisdom and the help and the friends and the fellowship that's going to give us that necessary power to say no to drugs.
How has been the journey for you since that time getting clean to where you are today? Have you been tempted? Have you been able to kind of block those out? Do you feel a new energy in what you're doing today that has empowered you?
Since day 26 sober, I haven't had any desire to drink or use. There's been like thoughts that come by, like when I remember this one time. It was like after the pandemic, like kind of on the tail end of 2020 and before the election though, but there were like all these tent cities all over the place, and I had like I was making a crazy amount of money with my business at the time, and I was stressed out about something, and I'm driving by this tent city, and I was like, man, that looks nice. And like, if you haven't been an addict, you don't know what that means, because all the responsibilities and stuff that we get from life, that's the stuff that gets scary, you know? And when you know that you can live on the streets with a whole fellowship of people, right, in this tent city and use dope, sometimes, you have this stupid little thought combined. It's not about the dope anymore. I never consider using, but it's just funny to think back to where it was nice not having responsibilities. But now I'm so driven every day to do what I'm here to do. I love the fact that I know what I'm here to do. Like on a daily basis, I'm told what to do, and I do it to the best of my ability. And I have moments now where I witness somebody have a spiritual breakthrough, or have a breakthrough in their recovery, or they get 30 days, and like something happens in their eyes. You see something happen when you're doing work across from somebody. Um, and I actually get quote unquote higher from moments where I'm listening to somebody and watching somebody's life transform in front of me than any dope I could have ever done. And that keeps me sober as much as anything else I'm doing in life. Because when I'm getting messages from people that say, hey, bro, I'm on day one. I just saw your TED talk and just want to let you know that I'm inspired, bro. And then 30 days later, because I replied back and I'm like, awesome, bro, hit me up on day 30 so we can celebrate together. And then exactly 30 days later, he hits you up. You know, having a position where you staying sober and doing what you're called to do helps others do that, dude, there's no doper than that. There's no doper.
I think with you being so vulnerable and sharing your story, like you mentioned, hearing people reach out to you about them starting that journey, and you have experience from going through battling with addiction to now sobriety. It, like you mentioned, you feel sense of like joy for that person because you are help in some way, even if it's a small bit, helping them in their path. Like you mentioned, hearing that TED talk that they saw, like that might have played something you might have said in there, played a big role into their mission that they're doing. So you're kind of on that journey with them. And I think people listening, they probably have that person that they have listened to that they say one sentence and they're like, this is what I needed. And that is the change that makes the community and network that we have nowadays so memorable for people.
Yeah, and I want anybody listening to this to know that this isn't special to me. Like, and that's my whole message. If you listen to the TED Talk Relapse Prevention Failed, you'll hear me tell exactly how all of us need to be sharing our stories. And
Mhm.
you'll hear real life stories of people that, have come through programs with me or wrote their books and things like that, and the people that they've impacted. Like, recovery literally started with one guy who helped one guy, who were then blown away that this happened. And then they went out and started helping other alcoholics together. It started with one person. And every single person that finds recovery, like for instance, I'm a Jesus loving Christian who did the 12 steps in like 45 days. My story can help a lot of people, but there's a lot of people that, they might need another message, that you might be somebody who's on fentanyl that needs to start out with some Suboxone. That's not my story, but I'm 100% for it. I'm 100% for anything that is saving somebody's life. You might be, you know, and the thing is like we're all called to somebody also. For instance, when I was trying to get clean, I was always looking for the big, powerful guy in recovery to sponsor me. I was looking for the guy that, you know, had something in his life that I looked up to, whether it was a fancy business or the nice truck or a beautiful wife and these things. And I'm like, oh, that person can get me sober. And having that mentality actually caused me to fail over and over and over and over. And, I'm uh, whatever, you know what I am. And the person who ended up sponsoring me and getting me through the work was an alcoholic that had never used drugs before, had never sponsored anybody before, was just under 2 years sober, and was a gay man. Literally, we had almost nothing in common together, except we both had the same kind of disease, and he had time for me. He picked me up every single morning at 6:30 a.m. in his 1983 mailman Jeep from the sober living house I was staying at, and we went to go do the step work together, and that saved my life. And what I've found is it's not about, I have no special power in helping people. Every single person in recovery that is dedicated to loving and helping another addict has the exact same potential that I have for helping that person. And oftentimes it's more.
It's almost like when you talked about the person that you wanted to be that sponsor, that giving off those unrealistic expectations is if you follow this, you get this, where you kind of found that opposite person that is completely not similar into the way that you are, but the bond and how that you helped each other or he helped you created that realistic expectation on getting clean and sober. And it just shows like the saying opposites attract. But it was like that. You needed that someone that was completely from a different point of view to come into your life to bring you to that next level that you needed.
Yeah. Yeah. And him
Talk
and I still talk at least a few times a year. And, you know, I don't think that there's anything that has to separate each of us. I think that there's something that um, is causing a lot of people to argue right now. And I think there's more that we have in common as humans than we actually disagree on. And I think that a lot of us focus on all of the, opposite things about us and all the things we don't like about each other when genuinely, if we're asking for the eyes of God to see people, he doesn't see any of that in any of us. He sees us as his children, as someone who needs love. Every single one of us needs love.
Yep.
And again, just having the opportunity to be in that position to give somebody God's love, it's something that everybody should strive for.
You talked about the TED Talk. Was that always a goal of yours after being sober, is to really share your story and go on a platform like TED Talks?
It was a dream of mine before I was sober. That's been there a while, bro. I've always thought that I was supposed to either be a rapper or a speaker. So there's that. We're good.
There we go.
Sorry about that.
All good. You can continue if you want.
Yeah, that was it. I was
Oh,
on. Yeah.
so when you got the opportunity, what was that like for you being on that stage, sharing in front of all those people, and especially knowing that it's going to go on a platform that millions of people can watch?
It's actually really interesting because I had been practicing it for a while. And usually I was like looking at my phone in order to get it right the whole time and da 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 da. And like before I was there for like 4 days before the event, and I was practicing every morning and afternoon and night, and I could not get it right all the way through. I could not get it right. And it was really, really weird. Like, because I'm so good at memorizing things. I'm like, I've got 7-minute poems that I can recite the entire thing, and it's like bop, 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 bop. I couldn't get this thing. And then before I go out there, I was backstage and I just was walking around talking to God. Like, you wrote this, God. And I'm talking to him about like just praying over everybody that'll ever hear it and praying over, my mind and being able to remember and like having him come in and speak for me because I haven't been able to get this thing all the way through. And there were two parts in there, and you won't see them, you won't notice them, but there were two parts in there where I was coming up to a section and noticing that I was forgetting, and then bloop, God just dropped it right into my mind and reminded me exactly what to say right there. So I don't that the first time that I got it all the way through without the notes was when I was on that stage. And the thing is like, yeah, and it was I was so excited, and I haven't looked at it like I was never nervous. It was never about nerves. It was about delivering this message that I believe in, bro. I believe in it so much that I had to just put it out for the right people to find. I know that there's going to be people that see that talk from now into the future that will impact more people because they heard that talk than I will ever impact. I know there's people out there that are going to do greater and bigger things than I am because of that talk. And I believed that before I gave it, before I wrote it, and I was looking for those people when I delivered it. And I believe in it so much. So it was more about getting up there with my purpose than getting up there in front of a bunch of people or knowing that there's going to be this big platform and things like that. That was never what it was about. It was about reaching that one person that needed it.
With purpose being that focus for you, is there a dream stage that you hope to eventually be on, or have you hit that moment and you are proud of that moment?
So I have this recurring dream. I have this recurring dream that it it's something that I see way out in the future, because right now I'm not doing ministry necessarily with the companies that I'm doing. It's not like I'm not preaching all the time. I'm not evangelizing all the time, but that is a really heavy call in my heart. Um, and I have this vision that keeps happening. I'm in Africa, and there's like tens and tens and tens of thousands of people there. And I'm speaking, and there's just this act of God for all of us. And we all just end up on the ground, and like people are being freed from things. And I'm seeing like people crying, and like, but crying in like that good cry, like, oh my gosh, my life is changing right now. And my life is changing the same spot. We're all in it in this moment together, not me leading them, but we're all literally on the ground, and God's doing something in the place, right? uh I haven't started like, you know I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know when, but I know it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. I actually I dreamt about the TED talk before it happened also. I told a mentor of mine way back in the day about this. I didn't have these tattoos. None of these tattoos when I told this mentor of mine about this dream that I had. I was like, I'm on the stage and there's like lights on me, and I know that there's like people out there, and then I go like this, and there's tattoos all over my arms. And then I start talking, but I can't, I don't even know what the words are yet. And it was the TED talk. That was the recurring dream I used to have. Because I just know that that's gonna impact people. It's already been impacting people. I'm getting messages from people that are counselors at treatment centers that are using it in their curriculum now. I'm getting messages from people like that one that I told you about, where people are getting clean and freed from it. And again, it's not about me. And that's why I tell people, like, even before the TED talk, I was back there putting it on God, putting all the pressure on him, because you better not screw this up, dude. Like, we're about to get on this stage. Um, but he didn't. And I know and now it's out there. That step is gone. And people used to, like, right after it, people were asking me, "Are you still fired up about the TED talk?" And da 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 da. Like, I try to say so even now, especially when big things happen, because what I've come to know is that each accomplishment is not able to be rested on. If I accomplish something and I'm like so proud of myself, then what? I'm going to get depressed. Just like the people, they found that astronauts that go to the moon and come back, right? They have a really high rate of depression because now what? Like, I just did the biggest thing that's possible in the world. What other mountain do I have to climb? And for me, that was one mountain. There's a ton of things. There's a ton of people I want to help. There's a ton of, visions that I have that I want to do to change the world, dude. And it sounds cliche, but like I literally think about this stuff all the time. Like all the people out there that are hurting that don't need to be hurting. I think about it all the time. Like, what can I do? Not like I love helping the one-on-one people. I love that, and I have to keep doing that every single moment of every day, right? I have to work with one-on-one people. At the same time, like there are systems that are broken right now that can be fixed. There's a crisis going on where, they're only telling us about 120,000 people dying a year in the US from overdose. It's more. It's way more than that. And every single crisis in human history has been solved. This will be solved. I hope that I'm there to witness this be solved.
In addition to speaking, other platforms that you have, podcast host and author, were those always a dream to have also? Or was that something that kind of was helpful to branch off of the businesses that you have to go off of the speaking, or was that in a different order?
Yeah, I always had the dream of being an author. I didn't always have the dream of being a podcast host because podcasts, are fairly new. By the time I started my podcast, they're fairly new. It's just, I just think about more and more opportunities to help people. Like, and I don't mean that in a cliche way. I mean, like, literally, how can I create systems or content or courses or whatever it is? How can I create things that help people that don't need me when I die, right? How can I make things that are going to last after I'm gone that are still helping people? And I legitimately think about that all the time. Like the cool thing about what we're doing right here is this podcast is going to be around forever.
Yeah.
Forever. My book is going to be around forever. Every single piece of content that I put out, my grandkids are going to be able to get to know Grandpa Adam. That's pretty legit.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is they're never going to be able to. I have hundreds of podcast episodes, hundreds of interviews and hundreds of videos and all this stuff that is now recorded forever.
Yeah.
And I think it's beautiful. I think more people should do it. I think more people should be, at least doing it, even if it's not to get millions of views and that kind of stuff. Like, even if it's just personal, make a file of videos of yourself. People are going to love that.
You talk about how this is and these interviews will be there forever. I'm gonna look at myself 20 years from now and look at what I did, and I'm gonna be like, wow, I actually did that, or I was able to talk about that and think like where I would be 20 years later. And if I'm still on that path, still doing what I'm doing, what does that future look like for you when it comes to your business? Do you see yourself increasing and going in a new direction, or do you feel there's so much more for you to do within what you're doing currently that you're excited about that? You're excited about those next chapters you're creating.
Yeah, so Recovered on Purpose is actually my nonprofit. That's where, I don't draw a salary. I make no money from it, nothing. I do it for free and for fun, and I do it to help people. And I don't want to muddy that water. I don't want it to turn into any kind of other motive. And what's cool is I actually have an agency called the Drug Rehab Agency. And what we do is we help real estate developers, investors, venture capital people, medical groups to open treatment centers, and we help them with the licensing, the policies, procedures, the staffing, the accreditation, and helping them get in network with different insurances and things. And then I help them market, building the website and helping them brand. And the cool thing about being in this industry is that there's a lot of, you know, like most industries, but the healthcare industry has a lot of bad players. I'll just say it. It has a lot of bad players. There's people that are overbilling. Arizona just had this big Medicaid fraud thing where they literally shut down treatment centers and made it so that you can't even apply to accept Medicaid anymore for addiction treatment because there were people that were gaming the system. And that hurts the rest of us, but it's great to be in the industry and be one of the good players, be one of the ones that doesn't have a tarnish on your name. That when you tell somebody you're going to do it, you do it. When you tell somebody that you want to help addicts and the entire purpose that you have with them from start to finish is help them build a system to help addicts and be profitable, because there's no reason to not be profitable. If you're profitable, you can help more addicts. You can open up another treatment center. And, I have such an incredible team where we're actually able to deliver on the services better than anybody else. And I say that with, 100% confidence that, you know, and the pause there is that there's people out there that, the top three are, you know, really good at what we do, right? But we're the only ones that can do all the services from the consulting to the marketing. And what I've found is, you know, being a one-stop shop and having everybody with the same value proposition and the same values and principles here. The reason why I started working with my partner, John, and it started like getting more and more dedicated to this agency, is on a call, this guy that was uber rich, this is in my first couple weeks with John. He had just bought this old building that used to be a university, and he wanted to turn it into a 600-bed treatment facility. And he's talking about all the numbers and the money he can make and the reimbursement rates and da 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 da. And on the call, we're like, okay, yep, we can help you do this and this and that. And as soon as he got off the call, John said exactly what I was thinking. I'm not working with that guy. And I said the same thing. I'm not working with that guy. Because if somebody in this industry has the money first mindset, they're going to cause harm, period. They're
Yeah.
not going to help people. There's going to be people that are, you know, there's treatment centers where you can literally get dope in them. They're run like trap houses. That's not okay to me. And I get to be somebody that, at least gets to help one treatment center at a time.
Something our listeners like to do is learn even more about our guests. When you're not working, what is something fun you like to do that maybe people don't know you like to enjoy?
I love to bench press. I love bench pressing. No, I love lifting heavy things a lot and then putting them down. No. I love my dog so
Oh,
much. I love him so much, and I love trail running with him, finding new places to go. And he gets so excited, and he's such a good dog. Like he can be off leash, and if I tell him to, he'll be right next to me and run with me right next to me, no leash. And then I can also say, okay, go. And then he'll make sure that I can always see him no matter how far ahead he is. So I really enjoy that. I enjoy adrenaline. I enjoy jumping out of perfectly good airplanes in different places in different countries. I enjoy motorcycle riding. I really love motorcycles. And I like chess. I'm not really into like watching sports, but I love playing sports. Like any sports I can get involved with. Pickleball. Pickleball, if you're not doing pickleball, you're not living right. If you're not
I
playing
agree.
pickleball, you are not living right. And it's like this like competitive, healthy things I love.
I love the variety that you gave. Is your
Yeah.
dog right there?
Yeah.
We're getting a guest appearance.
Yeah. Hey,
Oh,
hey, bub. Yeah, this is Enzo.
oh.
Yeah.
When you were saying about that, I can see my dog is on the other side of my desk. Is like she's like, what's going on over there? Oh,
Good boy.
You probably said like words like trail walking. Enzo's like, are we going? Are we going on a trail right now? The
Yeah.
final question I'll ask you for someone that's listening to this interview based on your journey and experience, what tips or advice would you give them to overcome obstacles, accomplish their goals, and rise to the challenge?
The number one thing, I mean, I can give you different habits and stuff, but the number one thing is faith. Like, if you don't have a relationship with God, work on it. If you do have a relationship with God, work on it. I have found that through the hardest times in my life, when no one else was there, God was. And he always comes through. He always comes through. And knowing he's there and having him as my only audience has made it so that I can not only get through hard times, but I can grow the good times. I can make the good times last longer. I can make bigger things happen. I don't have to worry about bad things happening. I don't have to worry about losing things or, being in situations where, financially I'm worried and things like that. Like I always just have this confidence that can only come from God. And there's nothing but him that can do those things. So that's the best way.
Adam, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about your rise to the challenge. You're inspiring so many people, and we are excited to see what the future looks like for you.
Alex, thanks so much for having me, brother. Thank you.